Two National Guardsmen were shot today in Washington, D.C., and Trump took this opportunity to blame Joe Biden. He did not denounce violence. Instead, he said we must remove immigrants from this country, well, in Trump's words specifically, any alien and anybody let in under Biden's presidency. He then weirdly goes into a rant about Somalians in Minnesota and continues to fuel the hate, rage, and divide in America. Every single thing that happens turns into a political opportunity for Trump that he looks for a way he can use to his advantage. Instead of putting an end to the chaos, he utilizes it and pits American against American and just hopes the Epstein files will eventually go away, but they won't. And this clip right here ends up strongly backfiring on Donald Trump. Let's take a look at it.
This attack underscores the single greatest national security threat facing our nation. The last administration let in 20 million unknown and unvetted foreigners from all over the world, from places that you don't want to even know about. No country can tolerate such a risk to our very survival. An example is Minnesota, where hundreds of thousands of Somalians are ripping off our country and ripping apart that once great state. Billions of dollars are lost, and gangs of Somalians come from a country that doesn't even have a government, no laws, no water, no military, no nothing. As their representatives in our country preach to us about our Constitution and how our country is no good. We're not going to put up with these kind of assaults on law and order by people who shouldn't even be in our country. We must now re-examine every single alien who has entered our country from Afghanistan under Biden, and we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country. If they can't love our country, we don't want them.
First off, that sounds like a direct threat to all immigrants in America, because he said we're going to send back the ones that don't want to be here or add to our country, not just the illegal immigrants. Almost as if he's implying the First Amendment will no longer be applied to immigrants. One social media post and Trump wants to deport you. Second, I find it odd that we have all these MAGA political shooters, white supremacists and Nazis who he has failed to denounce time and time again. Matter of fact, he ignores these shootings. Then Trump deploys the National Guard into his own American cities, which nobody wants them there. And a federal judge even told Trump what he's doing is illegal and ordered him to not do it anymore. And he put them in Washington, D.C. anyway. This all falls on Trump. And let me say, there is no room for violence in this country. And I hope those two National Guardsmen recover. I wish that incident never happened, because these are two people caught in Trump's crossfire. Nothing Trump does works. It leads to more violence, more divisiveness, more propaganda, and more hate. And now our military are dying under Trump. This is a result of failed leadership from Donald Trump. The insider of violence, the starter of wars, and a president who based his entire campaign off of dividing and conquering. Unfortunately for him, most Americans are privy to this, and they're just not buying it. Everything Trump does backfires on him. He ruined the economy, he blamed Joe Biden. He put our National Guard in harm's way, he blames Joe Biden. Donald Trump aside, there is no personal lie that a large amount of people would deem worthy of respect who can't take accountability for their own actions. We've never heard Trump say, "I will do better next time." Instead, he spent hundreds of millions of our tax dollars to send the National Guard to our cities that federal judges have told him was illegal to do, to pick up trash off the ground. The level of violence he claims he's stopping isn't there. He's actually increasing violence, because most of these cities he's sending these National Guard to already have sharp declining rates of violence year by year. For example, in Washington, D.C., violent crime is down by a total of 28% from last year compared to this year, to include a decrease of 29% in homicide, 35% in abuse, 36% in robbery, and the list goes on. Unfortunately, we predicted this. Not only did we predict this exact situation, but we also predicted that Trump would use this situation to give the National Guard live ammunition. It's almost as if he wants this. Now, let's hope he doesn't, but many people are thinking the same thing, that this may be what he wants. As a matter of fact, after this incident, they sent 500 more National Guard to Washington, D.C. What is that going to do? It's actually against the law for them to be doing this, yet they're still doing it. And at times, it's hard to blame him, because MAGA has rewarded Trump time and time again for giving them somebody else to hate. And Trump, being the manipulator he is going to do what continues to work for his MAGA fan base. Unfortunately for him, only about 20% or under of MAGA remain, and the rest of America just doesn't buy it. Trump has no cards up his sleeve he can use. We see right through it. He bombed 80 Venezuelans in national waters. He's always obsessed with talking about killing people for some reason. Is now threatening wars with multiple countries, Nigeria, Venezuela, and apparently the country he runs. The fact of the matter is he's lost the people's votes. They're losing elections left and right, and they're saying time and time again, we are screwed for the midterms. We know, but even that is somehow Joe Biden's fault because he blames Antifa for him being unpopular, which he will lie about his polls. Even though back in November 3rd, his disapproval rating was 63% among Americans. And what's crazy about his approval rating for November 3rd is that 40% of the 37% of voters that approve of what he's doing are non-college voters. And it's interesting that Trump and his lackeys convinced MAGA to not go to college. Trump himself said he loves the uneducated. Just bear in mind that Trump only loves things that benefits him because it's easier to misinform, disinform, and gaslight somebody who's not properly educated on a matter and play off of their emotions rather than things that are actually happening in this reality. And he's been on a very steady decline. Let's take a look at this clip.
As you noted, that 37% approval in our brand new poll by SSRS, it's his low water mark in this term, and that 63% disapproval, Dana, that's the highest his disapproval number has been across both of his terms. In fact, let's look at term 1 versus term 2. Obviously, a lot more data points in term 1. It has all 4 years here. And you can see what the line on his approval rating did over time. He ended that term in the aftermath of January 6th at his all-time low at 34% approval. This is where we are this year so far in the second. You see here, he started even higher than he was in the first term, and it's just been a steady decline in his approval rating throughout the year. Why some of that may be happening? Well, some of it is some key components of his coalition from just a year ago when he won the presidential election again. He's now only at 28% approval with independent voters. Young voters, he's at 29% approval, 18 to 34-year-olds. People of color, where he made inroads, especially with males of color in the last election, he's only at 22% approval. And non-college voters, this is all non-college, he's at 40% approval, but even just among white non-college, which is a key part of his base, he's at just a bare majority, 52% approval. So these are some key groups where he was looking to hope to extend his advances, and now he sees the work he has.
My question is, why would young people want to vote for Trump? He's given no hope for the future and destroyed the economy and job market. And in return, he's flying in H-1Bs to take American jobs that he promised America. And no, they're not taking the farm jobs and construction jobs. They're taking engineering jobs and programming jobs and computer science degree jobs because billionaires can pay them less over Americans. There's no reason to support Trump if you are a young American. The average first home buyer in 2025 is 40. So what can Trump actually promise the future of America? Well, apparently not much, because 79% of independents disapprove of Trump's economy. And this is 1 week later in November 10th, with 61% of overall Americans saying he worsened economic conditions, and 51% said he worsened their finances. Now, if you bought your house in the 1960s and your mortgage is $1,100, yeah, you're still hurting. Very much so in this economy. Now imagine the 18 to 30-year-olds, the ones that had dreams of owning a home one day, doing their absolute best, some going to college, but even those that go to college get out and find out they can't get a job either, because the jobs they want now are centered around nepotism, AI, H-1Bs, and every other resource billionaires have available because it is a billionaire's economy. And in return, what does Trump tell us? He tells us to have more kids as he fires millions of Americans, and adults have to move back in with their parents because of Trump's economy. And majority of people are saying this is the worst economic condition we've ever been in. And he explains that perfectly in this clip. Let's take a look at it.
This is consumer sentiment, the current conditions. Consumer sentiment can be the current conditions or it can be future expectations. We're looking at current conditions. And get this, according to the University of Michigan, we are dealing with the worst ever view of current conditions dating all the way back since 1951. This is record-breaking in the way you don't want to be breaking records. And get this, Kate, it is down 30%. Consumer sentiment of current conditions down 30% from January when Donald Trump took office. No bueno.
How much are they blaming this on President Trump?
Yeah, it would be one thing that President Trump could ignore it if folks weren't blaming him for it. But take a look here. Trump blamed. Trump's policies have worsened economic conditions in America. Look at this. We're dealing with a super majority here. We're talking about more than 3 in 5 Americans, 61%, who say that Trump's policies have worsened economic conditions in America. How about worsened your own finances? Again, we're dealing with a majority here. 51% of Americans say that Trump's policies have worsened your own finances. This is double trouble for the President of the United States. When you're dealing with consumer sentiment of current conditions being record-breaking in the wrong ways, being record-breaking for the worst ever since 1951, and you're dealing with a supermajority who say that your policies have worsened economic conditions in America, and you're dealing with a majority who say your policies have worsened the folks' own finances, that is, ay caramba, no good.
Yeah.
79% of pure independents disapprove of Trump on the economy. How about this? This is no outlier, Kate. This is no outlier because look at Marquette University, their law school. 76% of pure independents disapprove of Trump on the economy. When you put it all together with the approval ratings, it averages out to a net approval rating on the economy among pure independents of, get this, minus 58 points.
Not only do Trump's policies and lies not work, but they always backfire. And when I say always backfire, I mean always backfire, because the National Guard shooter that Trump just claimed was let in through the Biden administration did enter the US in 2021, but he was granted legal asylum by the Trump administration in April 2025. Now who's at fault, Trump? Is it the person that put the National Guard in that position in the first place, or is it the person that granted them legal asylum? Either way, all fingers point back to Trump, because all he knows how to do is lie, gaslight, and manipulate, but he forgets that records exist. The majority of MAGA may be uneducated, but unfortunately for him, the majority of MAGA is such a small fraction of the entire population of America now. And newsflash, Americans are tired of being filled with hate. They don't want to hate anymore. Now let's take a look at Trump getting exposed by his own grant of legal asylum to the DC shooter that he just blamed Biden for. Let's take a look at this clip.
Here from Afghanistan in the summer of 2021. He applies for asylum in December of 2024. Now he goes through another vetting process involving that, and he's approved for asylum in April of this year under the Trump administration. What we know is that the Trump administration.
Now hold on, doesn't Trump accuse Biden of using an auto pen? Do you mean to tell us that Trump accuses Biden of the things he's done and is doing the entire time? So every accusation from Trump is actually a confession? Yes, that is what we're saying. Every single thing. Trump is a person with no plan, and he thinks accusing somebody else takes the heat off of him. But Trump, every time you point the finger at somebody, there's 3 pointing back at you. Now, after all of this unfolded, Trump's political machine went into play, and Stephen Miller made an announcement, basically waging war on all immigrants in America, illegal or not illegal, saying that every single immigrant in America is going to be checked. And apparently, if you don't love America, meaning if you critique Trump in any way or something you just didn't like, they are now threatening to deport both legal and illegal immigrants in America because of the actions of one person that Trump gave legal asylum to. Not that that matters, but since Trump is so obsessed with it, because I think the greater concern is deploying our military and pitting them against American civilians. This can only end in one way, and we've been said that. But let's take a look on Stephen Miller waging war against legal immigrants inside of America.
Going to accelerate efforts to review what you heard tonight from President Trump. The breaking news here tonight is saying that his government is going to accelerate efforts to review every person added to this country over the last 20 years, or the last 4 years, all 20 million. Now, obviously, if you're illegal, you're out automatically. But everybody else who is brought here, refugee, asylum status, whatever status, as he said, if you're not someone who loves this country, if you're not adding benefit to this country, then we're going to send you out of this country. Because it's enough already. No one else has to die. No one else has to be murdered. No one else has to be shot. No more empty seats are needed at the Thanksgiving table or the Christmas table because of what Democrats have done to this country. So tonight we heard from a commander-in-chief a historic announcement, a brave announcement, exactly what America needed to hear, Kellyanne.
I find it really odd how they'll never denounce Nazis doing this. They'll never denounce the white supremacists doing this. They'll never denounce MAGA doing this. They don't wage war against these people. They don't label the Nazis a terrorist organization. They don't wage war against MAGA. They don't look at every background check of Nazis and make sure they're not PDFs with already violent criminal histories. No, one immigrant and you all will pay. And this is the problem with Nazis. It takes a very, very low IQ to focus in on skewed data, ignoring everything right in front of you, and blame everyone that looks like the actions of one individual. And if he's going to be looking at people that don't add any benefit to the country, maybe he should start with himself. Because if you think this is only going to extend to immigrants, don't forget that Trump said himself that he wants to deport the homegrowns as well. This is yet another attempt to give MAGA a new hate target, something else to focus all of their attention on. And once again, America just doesn't buy it. This was a terrible event. Denounce violence. Take the National Guard out of our city. Stop putting us in bad situations for these things to happen. Listen to your American people. In what bubble do you have to live in to consistently make the lives of people worse that you for some reason can't relate to? This incident should have never happened, and I hate that it happened. But there are better ways. There's better ways than more hate and more hate. There's legal proceedings and processes we follow. The iron fist isn't the option to everything. More hate is not a solution. It's putting salt in a gaping wound, and it's all they've ever done. How is this good and who does this help? What's next? All right, they deport all Afghans. The hate group doesn't stop, and the end result is Americans ripping each other apart. MAGA policies do not work. And unfortunately for Stephen Miller, the only people being divided and conquered is MAGA. They are dividing themselves. They are already eating each other alive. We've watched it happen. We've seen it happen with Nick Fuentes, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Tucker Carlson, and many more. We've seen people denounce Trump that have been avid Trump supporters their entire life. They are only doing this to themselves, and innocent people will get caught in their crossfire. Now, this wise gentleman right here is a very great take, because he mentions how the person that pardoned people who assaulted police officers are now talking about how we need to protect them. Everything done by Trump and his constituents is used to push an agenda, and it's sad to watch. It's like that scene in Death Note where once Light Yagami finally gets caught and he's screwed, he continues lashing out until the very end. That is what we're watching happen with the Trump administration right now. Let's take a look at this clip.
Of two people fighting for their lives, guardsmen, that this president put there. And as I said, I was one that was very vocal against that. But I'm not going to belittle the fact that their lives are at stake to get into a back and forth with the president. I can say that if I'm a member of their families, I don't want to hear what he's saying about Honduras right now. I want to pray that these two guardsmen who were ordered there and who we're being told by the mayor was ambushed, make it through. And all of this about sending in 500 people, what does that have to do with where we are now? I think that we've got to, those of us that have been opposed to the president's policy, show that we're not going to morally match him by going down to a level of insensitivity. There are two people fighting for their lives on Thanksgiving Eve. And it just seems ironic to me that people that pardoned people assaulting police officers are now talking about how they're going to uphold and look up to the people in the building. People in that building were beat January 6th.
Trump could take a master class on this man's integrity. Donald Trump seems to think the solution to everything is iron fist and violence. Look where it's gotten us. Look where we are as a country. We're watching political violence shoot through the roof, and Trump has still failed to denounce it. Every time he's only used it to blame Biden. Every single time. And unfortunately for Donald Trump, his time is running out. Most Americans are tired of this. The moments where America needs a leader most, he never is there. Every opportunity given to him to actually behave like a leader is omitted for power and control, which he is very quickly losing in this country. He still has not released the Epstein files, and MAGA is still leaving in droves. They're even making videos about him now. They don't believe the lies, Donald Trump. And as we said before, the remainder of MAGA is only Nazis, PDFs, and PDF defenders. And if you are tired of this violence in this country, then come midterms, we know what to do. And it is only a matter of time before we can restore our country again. And we will get our country back. And with that being said, release the unredacted Epstein files, Donald Trump. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you have a great day today, and I'll see you next time.